This is the Bic Cristal, a true titan of the product world, arguably the most successful item ever created. No matter where you go, be it a bustling city, a quiet village, or even a remote corner of the globe, you'll find this pen. It's in homes, classrooms, offices, and pretty much anywhere you can imagine. Chances are you've used one yourself, maybe even without giving it a second thought. Launched in 1950, the Bic Cristal quickly became a global phenomenon. Over 100 billion of these pens have been sold, leaving other top-selling products in the dust. What's even more remarkable is that this simple, yet genius design has stayed almost identical for more than 70 years. Even today, it remains a bestseller, with a staggering 14 million units sold daily. But why has this pen become such an unstoppable force? The Bic Cristal didn't just make writing affordable, it revolutionized it. The pen's design is a masterpiece of simplicity and functionality, harnessing the power of physics to create the perfect writing tool. Its success isn't just about the numbers. It's about the monumental impact it had on the world, driving down pen prices and boosting literacy rates across the globe. Let's dive into the fascinating story of how this pen's brilliantly engineered design made it a timeless icon. To grasp the true genius of the Bic Cristal, we need to rewind to a time when writing was a privilege, not a convenience. Back then, pens were more burdensome than they were helpful. Traditional quills, for example, were a nightmare to manage, constantly needing to be dipped in ink. They left blots and smudges with every stroke. Writing wasn't just a skill, it was an art form, accessible only to those with the patience and precision to master it. The fountain pen marked the next big step in the evolution of writing tools. With its metallic nib and internal ink reservoir, it promised a smoother experience. But even this was far from perfect. The nibs were scratchy, prone to leaks, and the ink flow was frustratingly inconsistent. And let's not forget the cost, equivalent to around $150 today, putting these pens far out of reach for most people. At that time, only about 20% of the global population could read and write, and the high cost of writing instruments wasn't helping to change that. Then, as the 19th century drew to a close, a breakthrough emerged. An American inventor named John Loud designed a pen that replaced the troublesome nib with a small rotating ball, allowing ink to roll smoothly onto the page. This simple yet brilliant innovation laid the groundwork for what would eventually become the ballpoint pen. In theory, this mechanism would solve the problems that had plagued writing for centuries, but the world was still waiting for someone to perfect it. He had just invented the ballpoint pen, a revolutionary concept that seemed destined to change the world of writing. But there was a catch. His design, while perfect for rougher surfaces, was simply too harsh for paper. As a result, his invention never took off. For decades, inventors tried to perfect the ballpoint pen, yet none could crack the code. The challenge was formidable. If the tiny ball at the tip was too tight in its socket, the ink would clog and never reach the paper. If it was too loose, the ink would gush out, smearing across the page. This delicate balance required a level of precision that was nearly impossible to achieve with the technology of the time. Then along came Laszlo Biro, a name that would soon become synonymous with the ballpoint pen. Biro recognized that the real key to unlocking the pen's potential wasn't just in the mechanism, it was in the ink itself. Most pens back then used thin, water-based ink, which was prone to leaking, slow to dry, and would often bleed through the paper's fibers. Biro saw that to truly revolutionize writing, he needed to rethink not just the pen, but the very substance that flowed through it. The early ballpoint pen designs struggled with one major flaw. They relied on gravity to feed the ink into the ball, which meant that depending on how you held the pen, your writing results could vary wildly. This inconsistency frustrated users and inventors alike, but Laszlo Biro wasn't deterred. He began experimenting with a different kind of ink, oil-based, thicker, and quick-drying. Unlike the watery inks of the past, this new formula stayed on the surface of the paper without bleeding through. Biro's innovation turned out to be a stroke of pure genius. His oil-based ink triggered a fascinating physical phenomenon called capillary action, which mysteriously pulled the ink onto the ball at the pen's tip, independent of gravity or any external force. This effect is the same force that draws water up through the roots of trees and circulates nutrients through our bodies. To visualize capillary action, imagine placing a thin tube into a glass of water and watching the liquid climb up the walls of the tube. What's happening here is that the attraction between the water and the tube is stronger than the attraction holding the water particles together, causing the water to rise until gravity balances things out. In Biro's pen, this effect worked in reverse. The ink was being drawn through the ultra-thin walls of the pen's tip and onto the rotating ball, ensuring a smooth, consistent flow of ink every time. This brilliant design solved the problems that had plagued earlier ballpoint pens, and Biro quickly patented his invention, cementing his place in history. To perfect the ballpoint pen, Biro devised a groundbreaking design that pulled ink onto the ball without relying on gravity or any moving parts, delivering a smooth, consistent line with every stroke. Biro's pen quickly gained popularity in South America, but there was a major hurdle: price. The cheapest version of his pen cost the equivalent of $190 today. While the design was revolutionary, the high cost meant it couldn't reach the mass market. Despite its brilliance, the pen remained a luxury item, and with global literacy rates hovering around just 33%, it was clear that the world needed something more accessible. Enter Marcel Bic, a French manufacturer with a keen eye for opportunity. When he discovered Biro's invention, he saw its potential to change the world. Bic purchased the patents for $2 million and set out to create a version of the pen that could be produced cheaply and in large quantities. With the help of precision Swiss watchmaking technology, Bic developed a process for mass-producing the tiny stainless steel balls at the pen's tip with incredible accuracy, down to a fraction of a millimeter. This innovation made it possible to produce millions of pens at a fraction of the cost, paving the way for the Bic Cristal to become the ubiquitous writing tool we know today. Instead of relying on metal for the rest of the pen, Bic invested in cutting-edge machines that could mold plastic, a relatively new material at the time. The result was nothing short of a masterpiece. At first glance, it might just seem like an ordinary pen, but its design was nothing less than a stroke of genius. This pen was incredibly simple, with no moving parts, springs, or complicated mechanisms, yet every detail served multiple functions. Let's break it down. The barrel of the pen was hexagonal, much like a pencil, which prevented it from rolling off surfaces and made it easier to hold. It was crafted from polystyrene, a material that was not only strong and affordable, but also transparent, allowing users to keep an eye on the ink level at all times. One of the most brilliant features was the tiny hole on the side of the barrel. This small detail allowed air to flow into the pen, ensuring that as ink was used up, it was smoothly replaced, preventing any unwanted interruptions. This simple, elegant design brought together form and function in a way that had never been seen before, turning what could have been just another pen into a true icon of everyday life. The ink inside this pen was no ordinary ink. It was a carefully crafted formula designed to amplify the capillary effect, ensuring a smooth, even line with every stroke. As the ink flowed effortlessly into the pen's tip, it met the stainless steel ball, a marvel of precision engineering. This tiny ball was machined with such accuracy that it could spin freely, just enough to glide across the page, depositing ink as it went. When the pen was at rest, the ball acted as a seal, preventing any ink from leaking out. Even when the pen was flipped upside down, the combination of capillary action and the ink's surface tension kept it securely in place, avoiding any unwanted mess. The pen's cap, made from durable polypropylene, wasn't just for show. It doubled as a clip and absorbed impacts, protecting the pen from cracks and damage. Every element of this pen was designed with purpose, from the ink to the tip to the cap, coming together to create a writing instrument that was as reliable as it was revolutionary. This wasn't just a pen, it was the pinnacle of design, a tool that redefined how the world wrote. The pen was a masterclass in simplicity, addressing every issue that had plagued earlier designs. But perhaps its most significant achievement was its affordability. When it hit the market in 1950, it was priced at just $2, a game changer. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within its first year, the pen was selling at a rate of 10,000 units per day in France alone. Marcel Bitch quickly noticed how English speakers were struggling with his name, so he made a savvy decision. He dropped the H, giving birth to the brand name BIC. Marcel was a visionary who understood the power of economies of scale. He didn't just rest on his success in France. He expanded aggressively, establishing factories across the globe. By 1953, just 3 years after its debut, BIC was selling 40 million pens annually, and the Bic Cristal had become a worldwide sensation. For the first time, people everywhere could write or draw easily and affordably. The world had been quietly yearning for a product like this, and BIC delivered it at precisely the right moment. Over the next 50 years, this little pen transformed the world, with 100 billion units sold and global literacy rates skyrocketing from 35% to nearly 90%. It's hard to picture life without it now, and the fact that its design has remained virtually unchanged since its inception is a testament to its brilliance. This pen was, and still is, the perfect tool for writing, simple, reliable, and accessible to all. If this story captivated you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new content. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. We love to hear from you.